Oh man, welcome to the very first episode of Seedsman Strain Sessions. We are here to nerd out about the plant, about genetics, and really deep dive into the life of herb. Welcome, boys.
Let's go. This is gonna be awesome.
Now, if you guys don't know who we are, dude, I don't know who I am half the time. Let's all do a quick rundown. Just a quick, who are each of us? Let's start alphabetically with Mr. Chris.
So I'm Chris. I go by Mr. Grow It. I have been gardening, growing cannabis since 2010. So coming up past 15 years now. And started actually smoking. I had to do the math. I started smoking in 1997 when I was 12 years old. My sister got me addicted. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. She brought me to the backyard with her friend and had me puff on a joint of the finest brick weed that was available at the time. And man, I was just hooked. And I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. It became legal recreationally here in 2016. And so I have a medical card and stuff like that. I'm able to grow here. And yeah, man, just fell in love with the plant ever since the first hit.
Nice, man.
My name's Troy. I'm known as Northern Scrogger. I've been growing cannabis for over 20 years. I started when I was 16. I'm now 41 years old. I've been consuming it since I would say like my first time was probably like around 14. All my cousins they didn't trap me in a room, but they put me in a room. They're all hitting bongs. They're like, Troy, hit this bong. And they all like filled the chamber of the bong first, then pass it to me. And they're like, don't put your hand on that hole and just suck. So like, it was like a huge hit and I got really, really high. I was scared, but I liked it. So a few years later, when I was 16, I got right into it and I started growing it. My family taught me a few things along the way to help me. Yeah, cannabis has been a huge journey of mine. I've been in trouble with it with the law. And now I'm here teaching it to people. So yeah, this is pretty crazy and amazing.
Beautiful,
yeah, man.
That's
love
beautiful,
it,
brother. What's which way is alphabetical? What comes next, R or P?
P.
Yeah,
The number P.
The number P. Let's do it,
The
man.
number P.
My name is Pigeons. People call me Pigeons. I've been growing weed, or at least pretending to, since about 2010 myself. Been on the internet for well over a decade now. And every day is a new adventure. I love this plant. I love what it's done for me, what it's allowed for me to do as a man and for my family. And I get joy from trying to spread the awareness and the healing properties of this plant to as many people as possible. And I think through good conversation, we can do just that. And I'm absolutely honored to be sitting next to the three of these gentlemen for this show. And I think this is going to be an absolute learning lesson for myself. And I can't wait to kind of pick your brains, boys, and to just have some good conversation in regards to genetics in our space.
Yeah, man. I think with all of us, we definitely pay an homage to Weed Nerd. We're Weed Nerds in our own sense and have that passion. So it overlaps very well.
Yeah. Rest in peace, as you use
Rest
the
in
word.
peace.
Yeah. Yeah. Rest.
Well, just real quick on me, my name RobCLtv, name's Jeff. It's Rob, obviously. I've been growing since I was 13. I'm 33 now. It was outdoor starting, then it turned into indoor as we got legal here in Michigan. And I've been growing and consuming heavily ever since then. Got me into educating from being into like the marketing and content creation realm for music, moving over into this space. And now I just take what I've learned, the lessons, the hardships, the peaks and the valleys, to try to teach people to do better than me. So now I'm here. And I've met these amazing lads on the way.
Yeah,
great
we're
meeting
all
you too.
content creators. We've all been doing YouTube for a while. We all have individual podcasts. Rob, Pigeons, myself have a podcast called From the Stash.
Gang,
Pigeons has Tea with P. I have a Garden Talk. So just Google our names and you'll see all the content that comes with it. A little bit different here with, we're talking really focusing on genetics, this show here, which is going to be exciting. A little bit, something a little bit different than what we're usually doing. Usually we're talking about growing like more in depth, cultivating the plant. And it's not just going to be us for this series, right? We're going to do us for this episode, but we do have some amazing breeders that we have coming on in future episodes. So definitely stay tuned for that. And we also have Seedsman hooking you guys up with a discount code, Sessions, discount code Sessions. Use that during checkout and you can save money at seedsman.com.
Without Seedsman, there wouldn't be so many varieties out there in the game. And now with them having clones, it's definitely helpful too, to be able to get the good phenotypes. But some of these genetics from the past have created some of what we have today and some of what Seedsman has in their bank. And I think maybe that's one episode that we need to dive into right away. It's the legendary dank of the past, some of our favorites of the past and some of the things that may be the building blocks of what we have today. We talked a little bit about some of these things on From the Stash in the past. I know Troy's grown stuff on Scrog School with these are great grandparents potentially. And I figure let's reminisce a bit.
It's a good idea. It's a good place to start. Start at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
Let's face it. A lot of the genetics that we have today were created by these originals. So yeah, I'm excited to dive right into it, boys. Let's do it.
But real quick, shout out to Seedsman for making this show happen. Whether you're looking for legendary strains or something brand new, they've got you covered with one of the deepest seed libraries around, curated from trusted breeders across the globe and even their own genetics themselves. Photo periods, autos, regulars, they've got it all. You can filter the terp profiles, effects, or just chase the next keeper pheno for your garden. And for our listeners, Seedsman's hooking it up. Use code SESSIONS for your next order and save yourself a little bit of yen. And make sure you check out this month's special over on their website. You'll oftentimes find BOGO deals, free gifts at checkout, and plenty more. Don't sleep on it. Grab something you've never grown before, or maybe get something that you have tried in the past and want to run again. All right, now back to it.
All right. Well, let's jump immediately into. We keep our notes so that way we're a little more organized here and alphabetically. Okay, it's gonna start with Mr. Chris / Mr. Growit. You get the M and the C, so you're before us either way.
Oh man, yeah. So kind of just getting right into picks, right? Strains, cultivars, whatever you want to call it. One of the ones that come to my mind that's just a legendary classic strain is White Widow. I've got to name that one right off the bat. It was my all-time favorite back in the early 2000s. I think it was released it was the early 90s, I believe, is when it was released. It was Shanti Baba, I believe is how you pronounce it. Worked at Greenhouse Seed Company. He released that, and it actually was a Cannabis Cup winner in 1995.
Damn.
So super legendary, award-winning strain. I remember when I first consumed this thing and I think it was early 2000s when I consumed it. When I first saw it and just saw the amount of trichomes that were on it, I was just kind of blown away by it's just so frosty. And now these days here, we're in 2025, it's very common. You could see these plants with just rails going up the leaves, for example, and just so much frost on there. It's just super sparkly. Back then it was a little bit more rare, I'd say, right? Seeing something that's real frosty when you're growing it, it was definitely a little bit more rare, but these days is more common. Anyways, I remember consuming this and just laughing my ass off so much. And this was when I was, a teenager at the time. I think I was like 16 or 17 years old when I first consumed this, and I was just giggly. It was like a very giggly for me. It is a hybrid, so you're going to get a little bit of both sativa and indica mixed in there. I think I got my notes here. It's a genetic cross between Brazilian sativa landrace and a resin-heavy Southern Indian indica. So it's a 60% sativa, 40% indica. But yeah, this one I definitely had to name right off the bat because I felt like this was like a staple in my diet back then. It would be consuming that almost every single night. My buddy would steal his stash. He would steal a stash from his mom and then bring it to us, and we'd all consume it. And it was White Widow.
Been there, brother. I'm sorry, Mama. Okay, never meant to hurt you.
Dude, I'm glad that you chose White Widow, dude, because it's like White Widow to me is not only did you take two. I can't say I've tried the Indian or the Colombia. What did you say the first one was?
Brazilian.
Brazilian.
Brazil.
So, but I have had White Widow, and it's like it's one of the most iconic ones where it's when you first start smoking. There's there's that White Widow. Yeah, it's one of those iconic ones that just takes it back. I remember we had a clip on FTS about White Widow, and I wish I could reference it right now, but Todd McCormick commented under about his story of White Widow, and it was quite interesting. Quite
I
interesting.
think that like White Widow is one of those original named weed. Back before it was Brick or there was Chronic, finally it had a name. You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, White Widow? You know, there's a few, there was the Hazes, you know, there was the AK-47. White Widow was always there. And the problem with White Widow now is you could Google White Widow to try to get it. And you're going to wind up with the best search engine optimization banks, not the legitimate places, not the legitimate breeders. And it's tough, man. It really is, because these are great genetics, and just like a Blue Dream or some of these others, it'll make you think they suck if you get the wrong one. And I've done it in the past. I've had a White Widow that I thought was White Widow, and it was bland as hell. It was nothing. It was Clear Widow. It did nothing to me. And unfortunately, that turned me off from the genetic until I had an OG that I was kicking it with, an old head, and he had some, and it was phenomenal. I was like, this is White Widow? He's like, dude, yeah, I've been growing this since like 92, 93, some early, yeah, so 95, obviously, that makes sense. So early 90s. And it's crazy when you find out this whole time what I tied a terp or the lack of terp to a genetic was it was a logical fallacy, because what I saw as White Widow was not White Widow. It was a mirage.
Do you think the majority, because it's funny when you say you search White Widow into the interwebs, it's like, do you think the majority of the crosses out there, obviously, do you think they're White Widow?
No.
Because I think like that's got to be like, if you could pick the most frauded, I don't know what frauded genetic, do you think
Knocked off.
knocked off?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to think it's got to be White Widow. That's what I would.
You'd think, you know, and it's like some people, they'll make a copy version of it that'll be similar, and that's okay if it's similar, but a lot of times it just doesn't line up to be exactly the same. You know, I haven't tried it yet, haven't got a chance to, but I do see that Seedsman does have a White Widow, so it could be similar to the original, but it's hard to really tell. And then you go right on the website, and there's like 1, 2, 3. There's so many different. There's White Widow from Dutch Passion, from Seedsman, from Greenhouse, which I think that'd be the original.
So that you would assume.
There's so many. There's 420 Fast Buds has one. There's a variety of different ones. So it's like you have to hunt to find it. It's tough these days.
Yeah, I've grown a White Widow. Troy, have you ever grown White Widow?
I have a long time ago, before I even started doing the straw school thing, I grew White Widow actually from Seedsman, and it turned out really well. But to be honest, like I never like understood the history of it, or like searched the history of White Widow. I've always heard about White Widow, like growing up in the cannabis world. Like I've always heard like we're smoking White Widow, but was I really? Because we never really knew what we were getting when we were like younger kids in the bag, right? But yeah, I've always heard about it, man. And I grew it once, and it was really nice. I just don't know if it was the correct or if it's the real one, right?
That's the toughest
hard
part.
to tell.
That's what I was saying, is until you have the reference point, you don't really know. And that's me with a lot of the genetics now, man. I'll try to go to a dispensary to grab something, and I have the reference point. So then when I see it or I try it, I'm like, this ain't that. Like that permanent marker. Remember, it was like Hawaiian marker or something out in Canada when we were out there recently. And it's crazy how exact spot on that was to what I've had here in the States, because that genetic was what the genetic is, a GMO. You know, you have GMO from Vegas to California to Michigan to Canada. It should have the same flavor. It should have those characteristics. Even if it's a replica or a knockoff or whatever you want to call it, it should still have that flavor. If it doesn't, it's not that. It's somebody just calling it that name. So it's tough. And I think that's a big reason why we want to do this show, so we can dive in deeper. We could discuss this. And we got 4 different growers with all this experience to be able to say, mine was different, or nope, spot on, exactly the same experience, you know? I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, talking about flavor, looking at Leafly, it mentions that White Widow is more of a woody, spicy, earthy. So yeah, all that kind of brings me back to, because I feel like a lot of genetics had that similar profile. It says terpenes are myrcene and caryophyllene, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, those are very common back then. associated with stress, anxiety, and pain, helps with those things, makes you feel energetic, talkative, and creative. I definitely remember being energetic off of that and real giggly, like I'd mentioned. So,
And
yeah, definitely that's
kind
one of my
smoke,
favorites.
man.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that. That's me and you have a very similar palate most times, Chris. Like
Yeah.
seemingly we all do, and then there's some variations, which is the beautiful part. Because then I'll try something that, like Curb Stomper, prime example. That was one that was outside of my realm, and then I was like, oh wow, I like that. Need that. There's one next on your list, P. For me, in the past, I've hated. If you want to start into that, but then I've tried it recently, a different version, and I was like, oh shit, hold on.
Which one are you like? For me, the haze.
The haze,
The
bro.
haze.
Yes.
Yeah. The haze is one of the original ones that I started growing, but I can legitimately say that I did not get it from the source because, getting years into this and, name drop, having the opportunity to talk to guys like Todd McCormick, where he's like laid out the story of haze and how Sam, the skunk man, rest in peace, how he got it and how his neighbor grew it. And then to hear the story about it being bred originally in the Santa Cruz Mountains in the late 60s. And then, Sam gets it and brings it to Holland in the 80s. And it's just, the story there is incredible. And to know that, an interesting point, I want to actually reference the story from Todd in regards to the haze, and it says this, and I quote: "The Sam the Skunkman is the person who saved them in the early 70s and brought them to Holland in 85. The original seeds directly from Todd got those genetics originally from Sam in 2012." And they are the original 3-way Colombian haze that was bred in the 60s, late 60s, in the Santa Cruz Mountains by his neighbor and held on to. The key statement is this variety contains no Afghan/indica. It is unlike most everything in modern cannabis. So it is truly, in my opinion, one of a kind. So I love the story behind it. It grows amazing. If what I had was true to the source, but since having access to people who are well knit into the community, such as Todd, it's like we have these little gems, these little snippets of time where it's like we can go back and kind of get these original stories, and I absolutely love that. So that's why one of my picks was haze, and it was for that reason.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it makes perfect sense. For me, it was one in the past that I had purple haze throwback way long time ago. Probably wasn't legit, and I didn't like that. It was a little too floral for me, in my opinion. As where then I had, it just, I don't know. I didn't enjoy that personally. It was too much floral. I like that earthy, woody kind of funk, that nuttiness. You know what I'm saying? Gassy
100%.
primarily. But then I had a Tom Hill haze recently. And that was a cross. It was Tom Hill haze and East Coast sour diesel. So those together made it so I was like, okay. But the haze, that little bit of a floral on the back end, again, to reference that Curb Stomper, it brought me back to that earthy, floral, Hall's vapor funk, just different, man. And I liked it. I was like, holy shit. So I used that to breed a genetic that I was working on, that Sherbert the Pervert. And it kept herming on me. So I ended up killing that one off. But
What a perv.
that uniqueness, dude, man. A haze is something that if you have the right one, I feel like almost everybody, the experience, they need to try it, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what, going on that, P, I picked purple haze. So like we got the same kind of thing going on. And you're right. Like I picked purple haze because it was actually, when I first started growing, my mom was actually growing purple haze. And like, I used to always steal it from her, just like what Rob or what Chris was talking about with his budget. I used to be that guy. I would like steal it all and bring it to my buddies. And it was actually purple. Like in the genetics, it would get purple with, not just by dropping the temperature in your room. It would actually turn purple itself. And to be honest, like it did have like that flowery kind of, or like that like the fruit kind of smell to it. You know, the taste, the herbal notes, the berries. But actually, I myself enjoyed that. I love purple haze, man. It's super easy to grow too.
Yeah, I think everybody has their preference in terms of those certain flavors, that endocannabinoid system. Again, you know, getting deep into it. One person's door may not have the same key. So what I like, it may not work for you. It may be similar. Maybe if I wiggle it enough, it may get in there, but yeah.
Yeah, another thing about purple haze is like when I got older and started growing it more, I looked into it, and like even now, like looking at stuff, like reading up on it now, I'm remembering things that I got, what made me want to grow it to begin with. And like what it does to you is like, if you get the good purple haze, it can reduce stress. Something that I need a lot of is improved concentration. It also relieves some minor pain, like headaches, sore joints. Like purple haze is a good one for that kind of stuff.
Every time I hear Purple Haze, I think of the song
Jimi
by
Hendrix.
Cameron,
Oh,
Purple Haze.
Jimmy Hendrix.
Classic that brings me back to my high school days, dude. I used to love that song.
That's so good. I thought you were gonna say Jimi Hendrix. To bring out Cameron, brother. That's why you're my dog.
And speaking of friends, big shout out to our friends at Seedsman. They make it easy to find the right genetics for whatever style you're running, whether you're stacking a scrog, hunting flavors, or just looking for something reliable that won't harm on you. They've got that heat and the heritage to back it up. Their site's stacked with filters to help you sort for effects, flowering time, yield, flavor, or whatever you're looking for, just so you're not guessing on what you're getting. And don't forget to check out this month's special because there's always some amazing deals. Adding discount code SESSIONS and you'll save yourself plenty at checkout. Now, back to the show.
See, the thing is these are genetics that, like, if you had the real one, there's a reason the popularity was there. You know, it's just like in today with the gelatos, the runs, the flavors that people love. If you had the original one, even if you don't really like it, you'd be like, okay, I could see why somebody would really be into this. You know, that's something I feel with genetics, these legendary genetics that have made it this far in society. It shows that, like, these are people's forevers. Like, somebody is going to be growing this forever. They're never going to get rid of it. The issue is mass production for the commercial grow world. It phases some of these genetics out. The ones that take longer to grow, like these hazes, for sure, is definitely one that people are like, nah, if it's got a haze, we can't have it in the garden. It's going to be stretchy. It's going to take too long. Now everybody wants whatever's the quickest flowering, dense, purple, big buds. Yeah. So it's tough, man. It's us home growers who are keeping that alive.
The hazes do have big buds though, man. Like they're great for scrogging too, because like what you just said, they're stretchy, right? A lot of them are stretchy.
Yeah.
So you can fill your screen up real nice with a nice stretchy plant. And like also the haze, like they normally do grow like nice big colas off the top. They're usually pretty uniform colas. So your like canopy looks like awesome, like a whole bunch of like little Christmas trees all along. That's what I picture in my head when I picture like a nice fat little cola on top of a screen. It just looks like a mini Christmas tree to me.
Well, and that's the
haze
thing.
Do that.
And that's where the haze got its popularity too, is the structure and the growth and consistency, you know, with the growers. It's just, you know, we years ago, funny, and Todd just a million times, he's OG with the genetics, but with episode years ago, we talked with Todd McCormick over on the Dutch Pro podcast, and he was talking about stuff like these primary colors. And I feel like that was one of those original pieces that, like, when I was talking the purple flavor, that was a purple flavor. That or GDP, that's like, you could describe purple flavor. That's what it was before. Now we don't have that anymore. Now everything's purple. It's weird. So
sorry, I was focused here because when we talk about having access to like good sources, there's a ton of great books. There's a ton of great people that are still out there that are putting out quality sources in regards to genetics, their stories. And more, and I think just as important, I was gonna say more important, but just as important is the photography that goes with and kind of capturing those experiences and expressions from the flower. And one of the sources that I particularly enjoy is this book, which is Higher, the lore, legends, and legacy of cannabis. It was written by Dan Michaels and photographed by Eric Christensen. And this is a great source of just all of the different genetics, from land races to new ones. And, you know, as we sit and talk about super silver haze, it's like there's a beautiful story and a beautiful chapter on each and every one of these. And I would encourage people to check them out. And it has a lot of information about its 90s. And yeah, I wanted to bring this up. Its story in the 90s and so on and so forth. So having good sources and good books is very important. And ones like this, man, it's very well sourced and very well photographed. So it's, yeah, these are great.
Well, when you have those are those reference points that you can have if you don't get a chance to experience a genetic. If you could have something to look it up and say, this isn't even similar to what their description of it is or what the image is, that really does help. It's kind of like
An
a
archive.
guide.
Yeah,
Yeah, an archive,
I'm
for
glad
sure.
you said that. That's kind of what I was trying to get at in regards to having a reference. That's to these based on the stories that they have and the people that have grown them. So
100%. So to stay on the trend of old school dankness, for me, my first pick would be Skunk 1. This was, I'm hoping I got my research right. Let me know in the comment section. Afghani, Acapulco Gold, and Colombian Gold together.
sounds about right.
Oh, sorry, I hit the mic. And then I didn't mean to hit you guys when I did that.
Right in the face.
I know, my bad. This was the original terp that I liked. This was the original funk that did it for me. That was the one that I would basically say, this is what bud smells like. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was only now that it's gotten so whitewashed that this is almost an undesirable terp. But that's that thiol, funky, armpity, skunk ran over, burnt rubber nast. And that was something I was always a huge fan of. And to this day, there's a lot of genetics that have been created through that, dealing with like Jack Hare would be one, cheese being another, so a phenotype of skunk, getting these terpenes that were building blocks for what we have today. This one I feel like has gotten whitewashed a little bit, so people don't really seek it quite as much. But it's one for me, man. If you got a good skunk in the cross, it's somewhere in the family, it's going to have that funk that I'm after, that skunk funk. Have you guys ever had any experience with that one?
Dude.
No, I haven't myself.
Yeah. I grew the original skunk number 1, and I have it here from as Afghan crossed with Colombian Gold crossed with Acapulco Gold. And
So I said it in a different order.
just different order. So you nailed it.
The
So
dad is somewhere in there, and I messed
it's
that
in
one.
there.
Yeah.
But
Traditionally, though, hang on real quick. Chris,
Go
being
ahead,
the
please.
residential breeder, he's the furthest along. He's at least in his junior year. We're still freshmen. Okay. He's, you know what I'm saying, hanging out with the youngsters. The dad, when you're saying the genetics, the lineage, the dad's the first one you say, yes?
Yeah, that's from my understanding.
Okay. So that's where sometimes I've confused that when I'm describing genetics, and I'll say the one I like the most in the first. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like,
People
oh,
flip flop it all the time.
I know, but I feel like for the sake of us having a show that's deep diving into genetics, we should always be sure that we try to say that point right. But the males and the females, these are used a lot of times in this day and age, less and less to get these dank genetics. I feel like it's people getting herms or selfing genetics and cross-pollinating that sense that are doing it. This was back in the day where it was like original pieces coming together to make some of the best of the best. And it was a new terpene that these three didn't have alone. And I think that's not brand new, but it was that the thiol that was coming out was different than what you're getting from the others. So it's like, some people may have had it in the past, but this one seems like it's like a gem that's harder to get.
It's amazing to think that genetics of this type even survived to get to this point, because genetics like skunk offered terpenes that were undesirable during the prohibition stage, when you had gardens giving off this nasty, funky, skunky, just gross, very definitive weed smell. People were trying to avoid that. They didn't want to get in trouble with law enforcement. They wanted to keep things stealth and quiet, and to have something that just ranked didn't do that. So, or didn't provide that. So those genetics were essentially, or those traits were essentially bred out of a lot of popular genetics in order to just get through prohibition. And so it's amazing to think that we still have, or maybe even haven't yet tapped into the full potential of this genetic, because it wasn't around for many years.
Totally agreed, dude. I think that's been the biggest problem, is the fact that now that we are able to do this kind of stuff, a lot of these genetics have been whitewashed out, or they're not available for people to take at that larger scale. And maybe that's not a bad thing. We don't want people to take our gems and ruin them, so to speak. But some of the crosses that you get out of there, years ago, I don't even remember what the name of it was, but it was skunk number 1 cross, what was Northern Lights 12 crossed with skunk 1. It was one of the first videos on RobCLtv that we put out. It was like a how to roll blunts or something. Dude, that shit was the loudest in the room at all points. Anytime you go anywhere, people were like, "Phew, somebody killed a skunk walkers. We got sprayed by a skunk." I'm like, that was the loud pack before they called it loud pack. It was just something different about it, man. And I had a few other ones that were crossed with the skunk one, and it was always just so aromatic, just funky. So I could totally understand why it would be bred out when you're trying to have a stealth grow. You get something that could blend in with a flower garden that has a little bit more of a floral smell, a little bit more of a sweet fruit smell. So then if you do have other fruits growing, other things growing, it'll blend in more. You got bud. It smells like a skunk. I mean, when I smell a skunk, I initially think it's bud right away. I'm like, who's growing?
So do I.
Always.
So
I
do
drive
I.
by, I'm like, someone's grow. Nope, that's a skunk.
Yeah.
All the time, dude.
Me too. I love the smell of skunks. I think for that, just because I think like when I was younger, I smelled skunks. I kind of like the smell of skunk already because like my mom was a chronic, so I always smelled cannabis. I always liked the smell of it. So then I like the smell of skunks. All my friends are like, "What the fuck, man? You're gross." I'm like, "Don't you like that smell? Even
That
gas,
smells
man. I just smell
good.
gas sometimes
Yeah.
too. Probably because a lot of weed smells like gas. So I'm like, I fucking love gas. Don't huff it, but I love it. The smell of it.
Correction of what we were talking about earlier. So apparently there is no industry standard on what gets listed first. I just did a little bit of more research. I was taught that the male should be listed first, that the father should be listed first, then the mother after that. Apparently there's no consistency, no industry standard. Some people say that the female, the mother is to be listed first. So there's no,
It's
no
sexist.
standard across the board, which kind of sucks in a way, but hey, that's how it is, right? Just like we shouldn't be calling it strain, right? A lot of people are going to be, oh, we shouldn't call it strain. It's actually cultivar. Strain is for viruses only. So blah, blah, blah.
I know.
And you know
Fuck
what
those people, eh?
And people would be mad at you.
Yep. I was just gonna say cultivar sessions just didn't ring very well. So I would just
Yeah.
okay,
Cultivar
go kick
corner.
stones.
Well, I think that's the thing is like we've got things that we have a no real blueprint compared to other niches. Our genetic thing, for example, the closest would probably be orchids. And we don't have a orchid society. Well, they have an orchid society. We don't have like a full international legal cannabis society, so to speak. Orchids have no limitations. Once we have that point, we will have some of these definitive things, I feel. And again, like you can do what you want. We're home growers. We make it, do whatever we want to. But at the end of the day, there should be some standard operating procedures when it comes to some of these things and some standard lingo and terminology. So that way we're not all just bro scientists forever.
Bro scientist.
I just feel it would be nice,
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. To get back to skunk number one, I did want to mention I grew that out in the past. It was one of the first ones I ever grew out. Before I started growing, back in 2006, 2007, my buddy grew. I started growing in 2010. And so I would go over to his grow and just be mesmerized by his plants and looking at his cool looking nutrient bottles and like, hey, man, well, what do you do here? Trying to learn a little bit here and there. But he had cuts of a skunk number one. He had NY City Diesel. He had Strawberry Cough. And he had one more, which I can't remember right now, but those are the main ones he had. And I had cuts. So that's what I started out with back in 2010 is his cuts. And I remember those, like the skunk number one, from what I remember, it didn't really have much side branching. It was more like Christmas tree style. You get that real, I didn't really do training back then, neither did my buddy who grew. So it would be very big, thick bud right in the center, and then all small little side branchings that happen there. But man, that smell is just so iconic, and I think that's the reason why so many breeders use that for their projects is because they want to take that trait and bring it to other genetics.
100%, dude. I think the biggest thing, the building block argument, like you were saying, some of these genetics you get from a buddy. These are the original ones. That excitement, dude, back in the day, just to touch on that, the sidebar on that, going to a buddy's and they've got a new strain, a new clone. You're like, whoa, what did you get? Like this right here I got from my buddy from work. This shit is fire, dude. And the excitement of like, oh, I'll take a piece. We'll grow it together. Like, did I miss those
Or
days?
people say like, yo, man, smell how skunky this is. Like,
Oh, dude,
that's an actual saying. Like, look how skunky this smells, or smell how skunky this is. That's smells like a pure skunk in here. Like, yeah, like it's definitely pretty known strain. It's going to be like, oh, should I sit the strain? Oh,
I just think that people don't appreciate that as much anymore because it's so much harder to find it.
yeah.
It's not that it's bad. It's the same argument of the White Widow, is that you can get it, but when you go and get it at the dispo, when you go and get it from your buddy, it's most times not authentic. You know, there is authentic genetics that are real out there. I just think that some people rename this shit to be able to get that leverage of the branding. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
AK-47, the White Widows.
I like to refer to it too as like people's taste in beer or even wine, because particularly and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe in the comment section people can fill me in, but I feel like those skunk, that GMO, that nasty is not the preferred taste by the average person. I feel like you really need a specialized palate to consume those flavors, and not a specialized. Let's not put it on a palate here. I think you just need a very particular palate. And so I feel like, and I refer to it as wine and beer, is like, I kind of like wine, but I really don't like really red, dark, flavorful wine. I like beer, but I don't like Guinness. I don't like dark, nasty beer. I like a light beer. So it's like, I feel like the majority of consumers who like cannabis are the same way. They just want to have a light smoke, nothing too nasty with what they're doing at the time. And so I'm not sure that those skunks and those GMOs are really at mass that desirable.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm
I
wrong.
totally agree, brother. And this is, again, a lot of people get mad when you bring alcohol into the discussion, but the analogy is perfect. The
Mhm.
masses want a seltzer, a light, something, approachable. Then there's a handful of people who want those whiskeys. You know what I'm saying?
And they love it. They're
They want that
passionate.
deep. They want the
Yeah.
rye. You know what I'm saying?
They wanna
Troy out here is a very
cautious.
distinct palate.
Mhm.
He's like, hang on, no, I don't want that sissy stuff everyone else is getting. I want my own bottle. But that's how I am with bud, man. I can totally appreciate it. It's a connoisseur palate, and I feel like right now it's leaning more candies and more sweets and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just
But again, so is alcohol. Like, you look at the masses and
True.
people are buying, I don't know about America because Troy and I are in Canada, but you can buy an alcohol drink that looks like the exact same freezy drink you got from an ice cream truck when you were 10 years old. And it tastes
like
the
it
same.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm not knocking it. I love those. I'm not knocking. I just feel like you're right. People want the sweet. Somebody wants, it's more uplifting, it's more friendly to the palate. You want something sugary. You want something that's got some sweet taste to it. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's the disconnect with a lot of us OG consumers. We had the pleasure to be introduced at a time where this was the norm. You know what I'm saying? This was the average of what people had, and it was rare to find anything that was just light fruity or not crazy flavor. It was only the whitewashing of genetics over the years that there's been a million breeders and everybody needs to keep up with the Joneses, that we've gotten to the point where you can really pick and choose what you want. Such far spectrums one way to the other. Before it was red, green, blue, and then it started expanding more and you get the magentas. And then now it's like, fine, dude, you got a whole RGB wheel. You pick which side you want, different angles. And unfortunately, sometimes you'll fall on clear, which is often the case where there's just no flavor. There's nothing there. And in some of these genetics, they're just notoriously known for being white label, knockoff ones. So I feel bad for those who haven't got the chance to experience these. Like, if you do get a chance to, man, to look around, check out on Seedsman's site, look for the different breeders that have these, find the one that resonates most with you. Because again, some may be, again, from greenhouse originally, but it could be really saturated at this point. I haven't grown them in years. Keeping up with the masses and the demand, sometimes you have to produce more. And that's when quality can slip, unfortunately.
Chris, do you think?
Yeah, it's all about the demand.
It is. I was going to say, so
Demand.
we got more if Chris
I
wants
was
to
just
do it.
thinking too, just real quick, because I just love playing the rabbit hole. It's like, do you think we're going to lose the red, blue, and green? Do you think we're going to lose the hazes? We're going to lose the skunks, the red Congolese, the Panamas? Do you think we're going to lose those? Like, they are land races, so technically, or at least theoretically, they grow naturally. But do you think we're going to lose the originals as we keep breeding further and further down the line? Because we know things go extinct.
We could. I
There's
mean,
things
some people
like-
say we've already lost them, but there are people out there that preserve them, right? There are companies that are dedicated to preserving genetics like that. And yeah, so, but those people will eventually die, right? And then will the genetics die with them? Who knows? So potentially, yeah.
I think they're just going to be very, very hard to get, very
Yeah.
expensive, and very hard to find. It's going to be like a sought after, say, go back to alcohol. It's going to be like one of those bottles that like has been aging for a long time and it's cost you like $1,000 to buy, you know? And then if you want it, you got to buy it, you got to clone it, keep that baby alive yourself. And hopefully it's the real one.
And it's probably real finicky. It's been grown a certain way, never grown under LEDs or something. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many crazy things with that. You'll have to go to somewhere in Germany, underground in a cellar, and find, like, I really feel one day, and it could still already be that way, man. You look at cuts and phenotypes and variations of all of these genetics, how the skunk number 1 is number 1. That's this particular flavor, so to speak. And once the variations come in, sometimes these are ones that are the holy grails that nobody ever gets. And it's one old school dude, and it did die with them. And that sucks, man. Like, even look at rest in peace Weed Nerd, man, that had the house fire and they lost a bunch of genetics. And that was like, what are you going to do? Who has the same original breeder's cut? Maybe somebody has a similar one, but even look at the Chill Out OG, how different yours was, Pigeons, than what Chris's was, or than what mine was. Like, the color that came out of there, I was like, whoa, that's such a unique trait that, like, you had 1 in a million potentially. That's the beauty of these genetics. But nowadays it's a little harder. You need to hunt like 100 of them to find it. Before, man, I remember popping 2 seeds and getting the description. That's what they said it was. I'm like, damn, this is skunk. But mine was a cut also. So next one, Chris, you have one that also is taking me into the Wayback Machine. Blows my mind.
Yeah, this is another one that was rampant when I was a teenager. I think it's just because of his name, AK-47. So apparently there's some confusion on where the name actually came from. Some people say that the breeder's name, the initials was AK. Other people say that it was named after the AK-47 assault rifle. And apparently the actual breeder came out and said, no, it has nothing to do with the AK-47 assault rifle. So there's still some controversy on where the name came from. I don't truly know, but what I do know is that I used to consume this all the time back when I was a teenager, and I would get lit. Classic strain back then in the 90s. Colombian, Mexican, Thai, and Afghani. It's a mix of all of those things. And I never grew this. I just smoked it back then. I would like to eventually grow it. I did grow a cross of it. It was a White Widow cross with AK-47. I think they call it White Widow 47, I believe is the actual name for it. That I grew, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Me and Buddy, my roommate at the time, we grew that out. And actually Rob and Pigeons met him.
Good dude.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to grow together. And we had a whole room full of plants. And one of them, just one, it came from seed, was the White Widow crossed with AK-47. And what a combination there. I remember it had light bleaching back when like the LEDs were a high red intensity, and it would bleach the top colas if you had too much red. Apparently is what that comes from. And anyways, I remember just being a real headstone. It was a good combination having those two. But yeah, overall AK-47, just the AK, not the White Widow cross that I was talking about. It smelled a little sour and earthy, and a little bit of sweetness as well. But the floral notes that you would get would really only be recognized when you take a hit of it. And I actually took that wording from Leafly. If anybody researches it, it's spot on in my opinion. From what I remember back then, that's how it was.
Yeah, dude. My mom at one point, my original plug, the dude she was getting it from was growing that for the longest time. That's exact, like spot on. Again, some of these genetics, there weren't so many variations, so you either had it or you didn't, and it was very dead ass obvious if you didn't. And that was one for me, the heady high, like you said, dude. I would get so giggly dumb, like just sitting there laughing, tearing up with my buddies, and we would just munchie out like crazy. That was the era of getting that one and the stuff that was just called orange bud. It was like carrot. It was really just premature bud. Now that I look back, the pistils were just covering the bud. I'm like, yeah, it needed to grow longer, but it looked really cool. But the only flavor that came out of anything, that AK-47, dude, it was just like the sour, like almost a sourdough kind of funk, like the earthy nastiness to it of what I like for sure. But that the consumption of it always for me was very floral. And so it wasn't my go-to of smoke, so to speak, but the effect was fucking the high school high, you know?
I think it's easy to get those consistent traits too when we're talking about something that's literally just a bunch of land races bred together. Whereas like now, we're decades removed now from just having a bunch of land races put together and having White Widow and AK-47. No, now we've got the gelatos. Now we've got the runts. We've got, and we just continue down the line where it's like, now you're gonna have
hybridization is
so
crazy,
many
these traits.
varieties.
Yeah.
You're gonna have so many varieties. It's like I feel like we just kept jumping. We just kept jumping rather than really exploiting, if that's the right word, the original characteristics. It's like it's a web, and it's like at the beginning the web just had a few options, but then we only went through one option to another web of options, but only went one option and just kept going one instead of just experimenting, just exploiting the entire genetic for all of its expressions. So yeah, I get that. I get that, because AK-47 is just a blend of good land races.
Well, it's like looking at our list, it's like a small food truck menu. It's the classics. It's like a diner. These are the classics. Everybody's at least heard of these. Maybe not everybody's had the pleasure to smoke them, but like, wow, dude, like the nostalgia I'm getting is making me think of so many other genetics as we're doing this. Like
AK-47
we're definitely
for me
going to
was actually
on this one.
Was like, I have two genetics that throughout my entire career, if you will, or resume or what experience, that I've struggled with. One of them was Pineapple Express, and the other one was AK-47. And I've tried it twice. I've failed twice, probably because of my own happenings. But the reality is like, I take it as it's a tougher strain to grow as well. So if you're going to take it on, maybe it's not for a beginning gardener. You maybe a little more experienced when you take this one on, to just make sure you have feeding, watering dialed in, your light intensity. These kind of things are important.
Well, these old school genetics too, they weren't bred with LED lights. They weren't bred with the nutrition that we're giving them. Like there is something to that, where the characteristics that they got were because of what they were fed. They were compost fed, they were sun grown, or they were HPS grown. You know what I'm saying? In this day and age of how we're growing now, some genetics just don't do as well. Prime example, Humboldt Seed Co. stuff performs better outside, but it's because they breed it outside. They have some issues here in their inside, and it goes the same way with a lot of breeders who only breed inside. They kind of they're okay outside. They don't really thrive like they could, but it's like there is something to be said, I feel like, about the traits that you are breeding for that you tell somebody it's going to get when you've never grown it outside or grown it inside. Because I have some of these old school genetics I've seen my buddies grow, and they look like shit. And I think it's because they're in LEDs and the way they're growing it now, versus before I've seen the same genetics and they just bud up so much bigger and hardier, and the trichome production and the terpenes. Now it's just like biomass. So there's bro science in my mind, but I know we've talked to other people like GML specifically about, different lighting essentially affecting different cultivars or different strains.
Yeah, and
The difficulty that you mentioned, Pigeons, was it reminds me of like sour diesel, man. It's just a nightmare to grow. It's just
same thing.
More for the advanced grower. Yeah, it sounds like what you're explaining with the AK-47 is very similar.
Sour diesel is one of my all-time favorites that could have made the list. That was literally on my mind. That one and LA Confidential were two that was like shit, but they aren't as much build. Sour diesel for sure, but like it's a hard grower,
finicky.
And some people have got it in the past and just have hated it because either it doesn't grow great, or they pulled too early, or it's not legit what it's supposed to be. Sour diesel is a tough one. That's a great example.
Well, my second one, actually, if you guys want to move on, is an easy grower. It's something that actually is easy. I picked on Northern Lights. I'm sure everyone's heard of Northern Lights.
Northern Scrogger.
No, this is
Lights makes sense.
For sure. Well, like, this is a strain that I did grow when I was younger, mainly because like where we live in Ontario, this plant was resilient. It can withstand like a lot of heat, and it actually finishes at decent time during flower, like around 45 to 50 days ish. That's what the EP says, and that is pretty much true. The cool thing about this plant is like it was actually, I guess, thought of or developed in Seattle by a man called the Indian. This is just rumors. They don't know for sure if that's true, but a man called the Indian in Seattle, Washington was the one who created this strain. And it did win a cannabis cup in the 80s. So that's probably why it got super, super popular right when I was getting into this stuff is like probably in like the early 90s. So if it won a cannabis cup in the 80s, that's probably why we hear so much of it. And yeah, man, it grew huge, big buds. Very, very nice plant. It also, now that with Northern Lights, they use it in so many different other plants as well. Like Super Silver Haze is one. Jack Hare, like Rob was saying, is one of them. Hash plant, big bud. It's like it's a lineage to a lot of plants. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is a cross between Afghani and Thai, which is also two legendary strains, just making Northern Lights.
It's crazy how, again, all these genetics, like we list 2 or 3, and it's like these are the originals that made this. It was only once this plant got commercialized that now we have so many variations. I like the sub genres, so to speak, sometimes, but sometimes it's like, what the hell? Why didn't we just leave the original one alone? Why have we, like, GMO is a prime example of that. People keep making like modified GMOs that don't really change the GMO. Just leave GMO alone. If anything, make it flower quicker. Northern Lights was one that took a long time to flower. And so for me, it was like, well, 10 weeks is usually when I was able to harvest that one. And I didn't enjoy it as much. I had a number 12 is what it was called. Number 12, allegedly. And it was just by far the biggest growing plant that I had. It was just a massive, massive plant. Every time I grew it, though, I'd run into situations where branches would break because it was falling over. It's before I was scrog and trellising anything.
Yeah,
and so that's
too
when the
heavy.
yo-yos came in. So it's
Yes, the yo-yos.
throwing them over my hood because I had it was the HPS light. So you
Yeah.
could throw them over the hood, no problem. And it was, yeah, dude, they would be hanging on yo-yos on that thing, dude. Big ass plant.
Oh yeah, they get huge, man. And like, I didn't actually ever grow it indoors. I always grew this outdoors when I was younger, like I said, and like we would scrog it outdoors. They loved it outside, and they actually did finish on time for us compared to nowadays. If I grew like something outside here now, like our climate has changed so much that you need a plant that can be resilient to high humidity, especially late in flower, because what we experience now where I live is like we have high humidity in like October or like September. Like sometimes when people want to harvest their plants, it's like still like bright summer with hot humidity. So supposedly the Northern Lights is a good one to do with that. It is a resilient plant.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
too have
man.
also grown it, and it is of the like the Seattle Greg variant, and very resilient. It's one of those ones you can throw the kitchen sink at, and yeah. I'm a huge fan of Northern Lights. Also,
Another
brought it up
building
here.
block, dude. Another
Mhm.
building block. I think that's where
100%.
people took that because they knew it would be a good, resilient plant, a big grower, a big shower, and then add another flavor to it. You know, it's
Banger.
like that's almost like your vanilla ice cream. And now what toppings are we going to put on there?
Ooh, a little
Yeah.
fudge on there.
You know what I'm saying?
Bangers, boys. I think you know what this was a great first episode, gentlemen, to start off with legendary genetics and just kind of dive into the building blocks of the entire conversation. I'm really excited to see where we go and to let people know too. It's like as Chris had mentioned at the beginning of the show, the conversation is going to evolve around breeders, genetics, the community, the conversation around, and I can't wait to see what we're going to get into, boys. This is going to be fantastic. And huge shout out to Seedsman for bringing it together. Don't forget promo code sessions as well
Sessions, baby.
if you're going to be checking out Quality
Sessions.
Genetics, because not only will it get you a few dollars off, it'll show Seedsman that this is a good show and the conversation is worth having.
Yeah, man. If you guys want to keep this show around, that definitely helps there. And if you got any special topics or some special genetics that you've had in the past you think you'd add to this episode and this conversation, drop them below in the comment section. Appreciate you guys a bunch,
100%.
man.
Yeah,
So
thanks everyone.
for Seedsman Strain Sessions, I'm your boy Rob. Northern Scrogger, Mr. Grow Up, Pigeons 420. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace out.
Peace.